Hey friends, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Trisha. Have you ever found yourself mindlessly snacking or eating while you're scrolling through your phone or grabbing a few extra bites while you're in the kitchen cleaning up? Or maybe you see food that's on the counter that you're not even hungry for, but you just kind of grab. These small, seemingly harmless habits are the things that tend to creep back into our daily routines, oftentimes without us even realizing it. And we may have felt like, oh, I broke that habit. Why all of a sudden am I doing it again? When we are working towards our health goals, whether it be trying to be stronger or trying to lose weight, oftentimes it's these little, small, subtle things that we're doing that are the things that are taking us away from our goals. But what we think about oftentimes is that it's these big, obvious changes. But it isn't. It's usually skipping a workout or overeating at a meal or not doing that self-care thing that you know works for you. These are the things, these small, subtle habits that will have the biggest impact when it comes to your health. Today, we're going to talk about how these small habits can take us away from our goals, why, when we feel like we've tried to hardwire our brain differently, do these habits so easily come back to us, and then how to create awareness and to make change or to feel like you're able to take back control when you find yourself sliding back into these behaviors. First, how do small habits contribute to taking you away from your health goals? I would say most of us are probably mindlessly eating or eating while we're distracted, whether it's scrolling through social media or watching TV or working at your desk. It's very common for us to eat, whether we're eating dinner or lunch, that we are not paying attention. And if you've already made your meal and you know what it is you're eating, well, then it's easier because you know that you're not going to overeat. But where it gets tricky is that it's hard for us to have that connection with our body to figure out when we're actually hungry and when we're actually full if we're distracted by all of the other things that we're doing and not paying attention. Also, these extra bites that you're doing throughout the day, they really add up. That it could be a spoonful of mac and cheese or finishing something off your partner's plate, but they can add up. I mean, I remember looking at research about when people are logging their food, and I'm guilty of this too, where say I had like a half a brownie or I had something in the morning from my son or if I'm eating like waffles off his plate, I forget to log that. And it doesn't seem like much, but over time, if I feel like I've been doing everything that I need to lose weight, it can really create frustration because I feel like, gosh, I'm under eating, but yet I still can't lose weight. And maybe that's something that feels familiar to you too. So those things do add up. Also, for many of us, if you're in this place of really feeling stressed or that your emotions aren't controlled, you may find yourself eating straight from the package. So you may be sitting in front of a TV with potato chips and you lose track of portion sizes. It's already so hard to figure out what the portion sizes are anyway, like what's an ounce. But then you may be double or tripling that portion size because the portion size becomes the bag. And if you're somebody who is grazing at night or doing late night eating, it's even worse because you may have some cravings, which it's hard to know. Are you eating because you're bored, you're stressed, or is it a habit that you've done over time and maybe you're not even truly hungry? For women, especially pre or postmenopausal, as your metabolism naturally starts to slow down in the evening, you're going to find yourself craving things that are higher carb, higher sugar, which can impact your sleep pattern, right? And so if you're sleep deprived, you're just going to more and more crave those things that you're probably trying to avoid or not to eat. So why do we revert back to these old habits? Why? Like when we feel like we've worked so hard to do things differently. Well, Habit loops are hardwired. Our brains are designed to create habits to conserve energy. Typically, the things that are the most familiar to us are going to be the things that our brain's going to go back to. So when we repeat an action consistently, it becomes ingrained as a habit loop. So for instance, say in the past you would sit on the couch, watch TV, and grab a snack. You have a cue, a routine, and then the reward. The reward is the snack. Even if you successfully change that habit that you're not doing that anymore, you still may have the same cues. You may still sit on the same couch, watch the same TV. And even though you don't have the snack anymore, that's the difference. Your body's like, okay, where's my reward? And it can start to trigger that old routine again because you're doing half of the routine, but all of a sudden it wants the whole routine. Stress and emotional triggers can make it worse. When you're stressed or overwhelmed or tired, it's going to be very easy to fall back into these behaviors that provide you with a sense of comfort and relief, especially if you're not finding it in your life. That's why so many people return to like mindlessly snacking or skipping workouts or procrastinating on self-care when life gets hectic, is it's easy just not to do it. It's easy to just go back and do something else that's going to make you feel better. Convenience also plays a factor here too. Oftentimes, these old habits resurface because they're easier. If junk food is readily available or the routine that you're doing makes it easier to not move or be active, well, then those habits are going to creep back in. I know for my own life, I think I've told all of you that my mom has metastatic bile duct cancer. And so we've been in and out of the hospital with her since October. And I'm really trying to make a commitment that I keep in line with my health goals and not get so bogged down or to not let them suffer as my mom goes through this, because I don't want to wake up in a year and be like, oh my gosh, I have to start all over again. And I really want to try to take care of myself. I'm really trying to do this for myself. And so what I've realized is that I have to still meal prep on the weekends, have lunches that I can take to work every day, make sure I grocery shop on the same day, make sure I have as much as possible that's convenient in my life, because there's so much of it that I can't control. And if I can control some of these things, well, then it helps me stay on track because I don't feel like it's like that all or nothing. And so for you, trying to figure out like in these times where life is hectic and inconvenient, what can you do to kind of have and create a little bit of structure and try to follow that structure as much as possible, but that you'd be okay and that you would still be in line with your health goals if you didn't follow the structure completely. Also, there may be a lack of immediate consequences. Whether you are doing a good habit or a bad habit, typically those habits don't have like an instant reward or consequence. Eating a few extra bites here and there, skipping a workout here and there, that's not what's going to lead to weight gain or sedentary lifestyle or taking you away from your goals. It usually tends to be like over time, that you do something over time and then all of a sudden you're doing something different. These small choices accumulate, and then that's where you see that that you're getting away from your goals. I always like to do this 2-day rule where if I haven't done something for 2 days and I start to think about, okay, like why am I not doing it? Like what's going on? So that way it just creates a little bit more awareness around what is happening within me that I'm not doing those habits. Because most of the time those habits are going to make me feel really good. And if I'm not doing them, then something else is going on. So perhaps that's something that you could put in your toolbox that may help you too. And then lastly, why we revert back to these old habits is because maybe you have an outdated version of yourself, that deep down you see yourself as somebody who struggles with your weight, who lacks self-discipline, who maybe doesn't have enough willpower to achieve that goal. And you're now having your actions match the belief that you feel. And that's because you have this outdated version of who you are. There is this connection between your identity and how you sabotage yourself, especially if you think that you're the person that you used to be when you've done all these habits to make changes that are positive in your life and you don't identify that. So how do you bring yourself out of this? How do you bring yourself back to doing what you want to do to achieve your goals? The first step here is to bring awareness to these old habits so that you can break that cycle. So here's a few things that I'm going to suggest, but obviously kind of work with what works for you. I think for eating, a really big one is to pause and check in with yourself. Before eating, ask yourself, are you really hungry? Are you just eating out of boredom? What's happening here? Is it just a habit? If you're not truly hungry, try drinking a glass of water, take a deep breath, or do something else for 5 minutes and then come back to the kitchen and figure out if you're going to eat because you're hungry. I feel like for a lot of women, we do this thing where we eat out of habit or we don't even know why we're eating because there's so many things because we don't just stop and think about what we're doing. So if you're able to just take a moment and reflect and just kind of think about it, and then if you're hungry, you eat. If you're not hungry, try to figure out what emotion is going on. And then once you can figure out what that emotion is, then you can figure out how to deal with it. So if you're stressed, then you can be like, okay, how do I manage my stress? Do I need to go for a walk? What do I need to do? Do I need to journal? That's going to help you because it's really going to allow you to see what the feeling is or what the emotion is if you're hungry or if it's just a habit. Another thing I think is helpful is to keep a habit journal. So whether it's you're eating or you're working out, so that you can start to understand what it is that you do and what triggers you. If you have some kind of journal of what your habits are, you can start to identify patterns and triggers that are going to lead to either mindless eating, not doing self-care, skipping your workouts, overeating, whatever that looks like for you. I find it really helpful when women are taking a day and writing down what it is you're eating and then what feeling you have there. And especially if it's during your meals, then you can feel like, I'm bored, I'm stressed. Then you can start to see the pattern of why you eat, what are some of the things that you go to for comfort, and then you can start to deal with the underlying emotion because it's not the food that's the problem, it's the emotion that's the problem. The emotion is the thing that you're avoiding or that you're trying to find relief from and that you're going to food. So if you're eating because you're hungry, that's very different than eating because you have an emotion that you're trying to avoid. So maybe even writing down what it is will be a way that you can bring awareness to the food that you're eating or to the feeling that you have. You could use a 5-minute rule where if you have the urge to snack, you wait 5 minutes before you make a decision. If you're not truly hungry, that craving will pass. But if you are hungry, then you eat. But it's just giving you that time away so that you can acknowledge what that feeling is for you. You can also set up visual reminders. So you can put sticky notes in areas where you feel like you're really tempted to eat things. And also I would keep food away or not accessible to you that you would be more inclined to eat. So if you have peanut butter cups on your counter, maybe put them away so that you can't see them visually. And so maybe instead have apples or pears on your counter. So that's what you're thinking of when you're hungry. Also, you can have visual reminders like, are you truly hungry? Pause before snacking. Anything like that is going to help you bring attention to what it is and bring awareness to the habit that you're trying to break. And that's where you're going to have the biggest win. And then also, for those of you, all of us that are eating while we're doing something else, try to have at least a meal that you're eating without distractions, where you're able to focus on the texture, the taste, and the enjoyment of your food, because this is going to be a place that you can really start to connect with yourself and know when you're hungry and when you're full. So let's talk about how to take back control. And sorry if you hear my voice breaking, I'm dealing with a cold, so I feel like my voice keeps cracking. Well, first I would say in taking back control, eating with intention. Set a rule to eat without distractions. No scrolling, no TV, no work. Focus on your food. And again, like trying to be a little bit mindful. And you don't have to do this with every meal, but maybe the meal that you feel like is the meal that's hardest for you. Most women will say that they do dinner and then they're in the kitchen cleaning up. And then after that, there's like this need to eat something, whether it is something that's snacky or chocolatey. And this is where it can be really hard to figure out if it's a habit or not. So I would probably pick the meal that afterwards you find yourself snacking and try to be really present to figure out if you can identify some hunger and fullness cues and to see if maybe you need to eat something with your meal to provide more fullness, or if you need to, or if the snack that you're eating is really in tune with what your body wants. Maybe you don't really want like Reese's peanut butter cups. Maybe you want like a yogurt or something instead. For my people that are eating out of their containers, portioning out your food is going to be helpful. That if you're eating straight from the bag, it's going to be really easy to mindlessly overeat. So serve yourself a portion size and put it on a plate or a bowl. And then when you're done, that portion size, then you start to let yourself have like that 20 minutes for your brain to acknowledge that you've eaten something and then decide, okay, I'm hungry, I'm going to eat more, or I'm full and I'm going to stop. So that you're having awareness with that part of your brain. If you're somebody who is really struggling at nighttime, setting boundaries in your kitchen. Once meals are done, clean up, turn off the kitchen light. So it limits this unnecessary grazing that we tend to do, especially when we aren't sleeping well or we have a lot of feelings and a lot of emotions and we're trying to take that out or find comfort in food. Creating a habit of not like eating in the kitchen or like while you're standing up, that could be something that you do too. Maybe you find yourself that you stand up when you eat or you just don't really pay attention to your meals. Trying to set some boundaries around that, like what it is that you're doing. Pause before snacking. We talked about that is just if you're grabbing a snack, ask yourself, are you really hungry? Are you distracted? Are you bored? Are you stressed? And then I think like making sure that you're getting enough sleep, that you're managing your stress. We know that sleep deprivation increases hunger hormones and it also increases cravings for these high calorie, high fat foods that taste good, that help us feel that sense of relief. So making sure that you're aiming for at least 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep to help regulate your hormones, appetite, cravings, all of that stuff. And I think like the biggest thing here is trying to figure out what that feeling is, that underlying emotion that you're having. Because until you know what that emotion is, you're going to keep repeating the same behavior. So if you're stressed after work, trying to figure out what you can do that will help with the stress management versus eating. Eating is so easy because we find comfort in it. It gives us that instant gratification and food is so accessible to us. It might be way harder to like sit down and write in a journal and go take a walk. But really, nothing's going to change if nothing's going to change. So it's trying to identify here the emotion that you're feeling so that you can comfort yourself with the emotion, not with food. Because ultimately, food isn't going to provide you with a sense of comfort that will last long enough. It might give you that instant gratification, but it's going to be really hard to maintain that sense of gratification. So my final thoughts on this is that it's not about these big lifestyle things that impede our health goals. It's usually these small, sneaky habits that add up over time. But if you're able to bring awareness to the behaviors, make small adjustments along the way, then you can start to regain control and align your actions with your health goals. And the key here isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. It's about setting yourself up and creating an environment that feels like wherever you go, you are able to manage the emotions, the underlying emotions that you may be feeling that are taking you away from your goals. Focusing on these small changes over time can create lasting results. And remember that like every choice that you're doing mindfully adds up, and it'll make a difference in your life. Because it may seem hard right now to be like, oh, what is the emotion I feel? But I think ultimately, if you're able to identify that, then you don't have to do all the other stuff, the like counting the calories and doing all of the things that we do to make sure that we lose weight. Most of the time, it comes down to trying to like figure out and learn about ourselves and figure out how we manage stress and how we manage our emotions and what we can do that works for us. That's why diets don't work for everybody the same. That's why you and I could do something differently, but we get different results because we're different. We're unique. We deal with things in different ways. And so it's normal too that you're going to fall back into these old habits. It's part of the change process. But the key here is not to see it as a failure, as you lack willpower, but as an opportunity to learn and adjust. Awareness, these small course corrections, and of course self-compassion are going to be the things that help you stay on track for the long run. If you find yourself constantly beating yourself up, it's going to be very hard for you to maintain these things for the long run because you're going to be like in this place where you love yourself, hate yourself, and it's hard to make change coming from that place. Remembering that the key isn't perfection, it's consistency. Focusing on these small mindful changes, and over time, this is what's going to create lasting results. Remember too that every mindful choice adds up, just like every mindless habit does. So for today, I want you to start thinking about what habit breaking strategies do you think would work best for you? Do you need to put a sticky note in your kitchen? Do you need to just pause before you eat? What is it that's going to work for you? So I thank you for being patient with me today. I know my voice keeps breaking up, but I really do appreciate you, and I appreciate you listening, and I will see you guys back here next week.